Last week we talked about hope. And this week we're going to be talking about peace. We're in this series, it's called We Need Christmas. We Need Christmas, so if you're just here for the first time and you're sort of checking it out. And the idea behind this is that we live in a world where the Christmas story, the Christmas season can be sort of like a blanket that we put over the troubles of our world or the troubles in our lives, almost kind of like a rug that we sweep our problems under. What my hope during this Advent season is that we see the Christmas story for what it offers us, which is this beautiful reminder and realization that God has decided out of his love and compassion to dwell among us, as the word Emmanuel means, is actually to be present with us. And so when we think about these different themes then of Advent, of hope, of peace, of joy, and of love, it's not just a thing we say to sort of plow through the holidays. We don't just give it like a lip service. There's some depth and some meaning to it. And so today we're going to talk about peace. And how I want us to think about peace is, here's a quick story. On my way to work, on my way here this morning, I was on the highway. So I live in Sand Lake, 5-10 minutes from here. But I jump on 131 heading south to get here. And as I get on the highway, I kind of look out to the east, and the sun is beginning to rise, and there's a few clouds in the air, and there's this fresh blanket of snow over this cornfield to the east. And as I'm driving, I kind of just look there, and I feel, as I look at that, I feel at peace. It's almost like I can look at that, and I can physically and almost feel my body take this deep breath in and then breathe out. It's just peaceful. At the same time, I look down at my dash and it says the temperature is -3 degrees. And that's cold. There's nothing peaceful about your fingers and your toes going numb. There's nothing peaceful about having to wear big gloves and a big jacket in your vehicle because it's cold. I want us to think about peace in that context today, that peace is not something that we have to sort of achieve or get to. That peace is actually something that is constantly around us, and it's balanced. It's also met with the chaos and the uncomfortableness of the world around us. But as Greg read from our passage in Isaiah, the big idea from that passage and from our time this morning is that peace grows from unlikely places. That peace tends to grow in not where we might be looking, probably where we're not looking. And that's the story of Isaiah. That's the story for us today, because peace, if we're going to understand peace, we have to understand it in the context of Isaiah, meaning when Isaiah is presenting this idea of peace to the people of Judah, it's a shalom kind of peace. I mentioned this last week. Shalom means there is a completion, it's a place, it's a kind of peace that brings a conclusion to any sort of injustice that might have happened in someone's life. It's a peace that means the relationships that are broken or fractured are brought back together. It's a peace that makes you feel whole and satisfied, so much so that when you look at your neighbor or your family member or your coworker, you look at them and you say, I am so filled, I'm experiencing this sort of peace so much so that I want you to experience it also. It's picturesque. It's pretty phenomenal to try to understand. And for the people in Judah, that's what Isaiah is presenting to them. So let's go back to Judah. Let's go to roughly the 8th century before the birth of Christ in Judah. Judah is, we talked a little bit about this last week. They are in they are in a position right now in their life, in their existence, where they are being pinched between the Egyptian empire on one side and the growing Assyrian empire on the other. They are feeling they are on a foundation that is somewhat, it's a foundation that they can stand on, but it's very fragile. It wouldn't take much for something to topple Judah. And as the story progresses, as Isaiah continues to prophesy in Judah, the pressure from the Assyrians continues to mount more and more. They are gaining more power. They are gaining more land. And what's most prominent there, or prevalent, is that their military becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's almost as if for every nation that Assyria conquers, it was easier to conquer that one than the previous one. It's kind of like a big snowball of power that's rolling down this hill, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And Judah, they are essentially knocking on Judah's door. And this is creating a lot of instability. This is creating a lot of sort of chaos within Judah. And Judah, the people of Judah sort of they look one way and they see the Assyrians coming, and they are nervous and anxious. So they look inward to their kings, to their rulers, for some severance, some level of peace, and they see nothing. The peace that they really want is the peace that once ruled within Judah, the time when David was the king. They look inside to the offspring of David to say, what are you going to do about all of this over here? And they look right within their own kingdom and they see a monarchy that is completely collapsed. At this time, Ahaz is the king, and Ahaz has essentially made promises to every other nation around him. He has made compromises that puts him in a position that allows him some flexibility and freedom, but puts everyone else that he rules over subject to injustice and oppression. That when Ahaz makes these deals with these other kingdoms and nations around him to not attack them, the way he does that is he pays them a tribute. He pays them essentially a certain amount of money in order for them not to invade, but the people who have to pay for that tribute are the poor. So people are looking at what's happening with Assyria as they come closer and closer. They look inside to their king and their kingdom to find some sort of stability, looking for peace in the midst of chaos. And Ahaz is like, sorry, I can't help you with this. So we imagine for a moment being a citizen of Judah. You've been told the stories of the great King David and Solomon and the reign they had and the power and the might they had. And you're now faced with a king who really doesn't care about you, who has sort of given up their leadership, given up their responsibilities, and said, you know what, this is on you. I'm taking care of myself. And then the people of Judah, when they press their king, they say, but what about Yahweh? What about God? What about, he must have something for us. And Ahaz pretty much says, who? Who's this God you're talking about? Who's Yahweh? They are looking for peace, and they're not finding any. And so Judah is sort of now in this, they're in a position where they're having to face and be honest about the reality in front of them. That they can't just keep trying to sweep under the rug all the problems and all the concerns and all the chaos in their world. They have to face what's really happening, which is a world where things look pretty bleak. And Isaiah steps into this sort of bleak space, and he begins to prophesy. He begins to paint this picture to Judah of what's to come. And what is sort of unique about his prophecy is that he's not talking about, Isaiah's not giving Judah like a restoration. Like, okay, I'm going to restore Ahaz. I'm going to restore all these kings back to them, because that was kind of the common practice. What Isaiah says is God's actually going to start something new all over again. And that's where we get in our sort of text. So when we hear these 10 verses at the beginning of chapter 11, what is happening is Isaiah is painting this sort of visual picture for the reader, for Judah and for us, using poetic language. And so the first thing we hear about is this stump of Jesse. The stump of Jesse is a reference to the line of David. So Jesse was the king that came from the line of David. And Jesse was sort of the last good king in that line. And it's almost as if the stump, or that tree of David, has been cut off. And what sits there now is just a stump that's slowly rotting away. This statement is for the person in Judah. This is a very humbling statement to make. It is admitting that we're not where we want to be. It's admitting that we are not the kingdom, we are not the people, we are not the nation we once were. We are just a remnant. We are a stump on the ground that people ignore. And Isaiah says, out of that stump will be a shoot, a new branch. We're not restoring the old one. There's something new going to come out of it. And what comes out of that is this description. And within that description, Isaiah says, what will come out of this is this person who will exhibit wisdom and understanding, who will exhibit counsel and might, who will have a knowledge of the Lord, who will have a fear of the Lord, who will have a joy of the Lord. That is the spirit that will rest upon this person. Judah, if we're back in time in Judah, and we start hearing that descriptor from Isaiah, what we would be doing is we're going to start counting. Why? Because these words, one, are beginning to describe a sort of figure from long ago, Yahweh, and each descriptor is not just a way of thinking of building this sort of character. What these are actually descriptors that are painting a completed picture. So in traditional Jewish understanding, 7 is the number of completion. There are 7 words here to describe. So not only are we getting this character, this picture that Isaiah is giving of who's going to come out of the stump, but whoever comes out of that stump is going to bring a completeness and a wholeness that we look for, is bringing shalom. And this individual, this person will wear righteousness and justice. Ahaz was a king who only put on the things he needed to impress others. And Isaiah says, no, the one who is coming, righteousness and justice is the thing that they wear every day. It's their work clothes. It's the thing they put on each and every day to restore what has been broken, to bring about peace where there is chaos. Isaiah sort of completes this picture by describing a world where two things that are opposite are together. Language of animals and children who seem to be the ones in charge and sort of setting the example of peace. I want to share with you the Message translation, because I just think it reads really well for us. So this is the world that this shoot that comes from the stump will bring. This is sort of, not literally, but this is sort of painting the picture, right? That the wolf will romp with the lamb, the leopard sleep with the kid. Calf and lion will eat from the same trough, and a little child will tend to them. Cow and bear will graze the same pasture, their calves and cubs grow together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox. The nursing child will crawl over rattlesnake dens. The toddler stick his hand down the hole of the serpent. Neither animal nor human will hurt or kill on my holy mountain. If we are in Judah and we hear this, there's a little bit of There's a distant memory that comes back to us. And it's the story of creation. It's the story of a God who, with his voice, brought about a harmony to a world to where human or animal both were working together. This is this person is going to actually bring about a new creation, is what Isaiah is saying. If I think of ways for us to sort of touch down into the text, find our touch point, it's right within that. For one, how many of you can think back to a time that was simpler, easier, maybe less chaotic? How many of you can think of a time like that and go, man, I wish I could go back there? Like nostalgia, right? I was telling this to Kayla the other day. We were driving home last night from our family Christmas party, and we were listening to Christmas music. And the song by Bing Crosby and I think the Anders sisters, Mele Kalikimaka. It's a thing to say on a bright Hawaiian Christmas day. Anyone? When I hear that song, there's something about that song that it's like if I were to close my eyes. I didn't do it while I was driving. It's okay, Randy. When I hear that song and I close my eyes, I imagine it's like I'm transported back into like the 1940s, where it's just this pristine beach with these big palm trees, and there's just this peacefulness to it. Man, I'd love to go back there. It sounds really alluring. I think that Judah is hearing this prophecy and thinking, man, we want to go back there. And if we think about our world today, if we think about our lives today, what shapes these things is the lack of peace that we experience and our longing to go back to things that were once better. That our world and our lives are shaped by very similar things like Judah. There's the fear of the unknown or the unexpected. There is this, they live in this world where they look at one side and they see chaos at their doorstep, and they look inside for some sort of semblance and recognition of peace, and they get nothing there, and so they are torn because now it's self-preservation. What do we do to survive? There is rampant injustice that's happening. And I used this word last week, and I'm picking up again because sometimes it just feels like a good word. They're weary. Weariness is this feeling in the soul. Like weariness for me, personally, is when I turned on the news. I should back that up. When I open up my phone and I open up my Google page and I have all the top news, when I see a story about what happened at Brown University, or I hear a story about what happens in Sydney, Australia, my heart is weary. how many more stories like this do I have to hear? I'm not tired. I'm not exhausted. My soul is weary when I hear those things. Because it is the picture of a world that has no peace. A picture of a world that lacks any sort of stability. And for me, my human reaction to trying to find peace, where do I look for it, is often in things that are not, when I look for peace, I'm not looking up to God, I'm looking around at things I can grab. Who's in power? Who's in control? Who has the levers? How can we move them? What are the quick fixes to fix the problem right now? I just need peace. I need peace right now. So I need to figure something out right now. If I were to kind of step out of just the Advent season, if I were to think about my life personally over the years, I'm a people pleaser in recovery. And I spent a lot of my young adult and adult years trying to find peace by making other people happy, by trying to control them, trying to motivate them or persuade them that I was worth their time or their energy, trying to somehow find quick fixes for bigger issues. And if I look back now, that grasping and grabbing for peace often slipped through my fingers, and I found myself in more chaos, in more conflict, in more trouble. That if I really want to seek peace, there's got to be another way to do it. Here's just an illustration to kind of help maybe paint this picture more. When I go to like a movie with my family, and we sit down in the AMC there on Alpine with the nice reclining seats, I put my phone on silent mode, or if you have an iPhone, the do not disturb thing on the side of the phone. I do that because I don't want to interrupt the movie experience for me. I don't want to interrupt it for others. And so I put my phone in silent mode because my thought is I'll put my phone in silent mode, and then it's almost like my brain will kind of go into silent mode. But that doesn't really happen. Even though I put my phone into silent mode, my brain still is activated. I'm still thinking about the text message that I probably need to send back, or the email I need to reply to, or I'm thinking about the things I have to do the next day, that I'm trying to manufacture a certain amount of peace, but it doesn't exist because I'm living in a world where it's surrounded by chaos, that I really just can't shut off and turn off. So it leaves me with this question, so what is peace? Like, what is peace? If we're going to talk about this idea of peace, and if we're even going to take it a little bit further, what is shalom? Like, is it just a fantasy that we're trying to get? Or is it something that we really can obtain? The story of Advent. This time of Advent is, for us, an opportunity to experience peace. The peace that we read about, the peace that we fantasize about, the peace that we long for. It is offered to us through in this time as we think about Jesus, as we think about what Advent represents. Jesus is not an agent of peace. The Messiah is not this picture of peace that we can sort of strive to and live up to. Jesus, Christ, the Messiah, who was born in Bethlehem, he is peace. He is the peace that we look for. He is the shoot that came out of the stump of Jesse. You actually can read, if you look at Matthew chapter 1 or Luke chapter 3, the genealogy of Jesus, Jesse is named in the genealogy of Jesus. He is the new shoot that comes out of what is broken and lost. And that the way that we sort of can, if we were to just take a quick flip through the Gospels, we see this even confirmed at his baptism, where God sort of makes complete that this is my Son, whom I am well pleased, and the Spirit of God descends on him like a dove, a picture of peace. Now, if we were to leave it there, I just feel like I'm cutting you short. So I apologize because I'm going a little long here, but I want this to be real to you, and I need this to be real to me. When we say that Jesus is peace, we can actually see it time and time again throughout the story of the Gospels. Throughout those pages of the Gospels, we can see time and time again where Jesus embodies the very description that we read about from Isaiah. That Jesus is the one who, in the chaos of a storm, doesn't scream at his disciples on the boat to figure things out, or doesn't get worked up. He speaks into the chaos, peace, storm, be still. And the waves obey him, as it says in Mark. That when Jesus is with his followers, and there's all these young children around him, and all the adults are like, hey, get the kids away from the rabbi. Come on. Their hands are sticky and dirty. We don't want to get the rabbi sticky and dirty. And Jesus says, no. Come, bring to me the little children, for this is what the kingdom of heaven is like. The kingdom of heaven is like the place where the most vulnerable get to be the closest. Jesus is exhibiting the picture of someone who wears righteousness and justice each and every day, because when the woman who is caught in adultery and is about to be stoned to death, he stands before them and says, whoever hasn't sinned, why don't you be the first one to throw the stone? And one after the other, the stones fall from their hands. Righteousness and justice. That Jesus that his very birth is the picture of peace, that instead of Jesus coming here and gaining power by domination or by conquering, he is born in a barn surrounded by animals, not in a palace surrounded by kings and rulers. This peace that is Jesus is the peace that we all long for, and it's the peace that is extended and offered to us through him. That when we really want to experience peace, the peace that we think back to how it could be or how it once was or how we wish it were, Jesus offers that to us. It's not this far off idea we have to try to grasp or understand. It is a personal relationship with Jesus. I want to wrap up our time here, some closing thoughts, and then a couple questions here. Peace grows in unlikely places. For Isaiah, for the people of Judah, peace would eventually come through some unlikely people in some unlikely places, and it would take time for it to get there. For us today, that peace comes through not power or strength or might or influence or money or wealth. That peace comes through Jesus being born in a barn surrounded by animals. A picture of being born into the messiness of life. It's the invitation for us that there's nothing messy about our lives that Jesus can't handle. This idea then that our brokenness won't last forever. What I mean by that, something that I loved about when I was reading this week about Isaiah is that statement about the stump of Jesse. When Isaiah says that, he's telling the people of Judah, listen, you got to be honest about the brokenness you're experiencing. You got to be able to look it straight on and say, yeah, this is our life now. It won't be like that forever, Isaiah says, because there is a shoot that is coming. There's a new branch that's coming. But you've got to be willing to admit that that's what it is now. I've said this for years. I think I'm stealing it from another pastor I heard, but church should be an okay place to be okay. Church should be a place where we look at our brokenness straight on and say, yep, that's my life right now. That brokenness won't last forever, but we've got to be willing to be honest with the brokenness that we are experiencing and seeing, the lack of peace that we wish was there, but it's not there. I think we've got to be willing to just face that with the hope of the peace that comes through Jesus. And in that waiting, right, we wait with great expectation. Last week when we talked about hope, we said that hope isn't this wishful thinking. It's an actual thing that it's a vision of our future through Jesus. Peace is the same thing. Peace isn't something that we are trying to achieve, or peace isn't something that we are hoping to get. Peace is an actual thing that we can experience, and we will. So we wait for that in expectation that it will come one day. It may not happen on our timetable. It may not happen in the way that we think or believe it will, but it will happen. I want to close out this with some reflect, relate, and practice questions for us today. A question to reflect on this week is, how does Isaiah's vision of peace challenge my definition of peace? My definition of peace is either pleasing the people around me or trying to manipulate the systems around me. How does that differ than the peace that Isaiah kind of envisions? Relate is, where do I see my community longing for the kind of peace Isaiah describes? Whether that's here in the Cedar Springs area, whether it's up in the Sand Lake where I live, or Rockford, wherever you may be, where do you see people in your community just longing for a peace that Isaiah, a shalom? Where do you see that? Lastly, practice, we can all kind of practice this week, is what is one small way I can live as a person shaped by Advent peace this week? How can I live in such a way that I model, that I live out this peace that is not something that I have to achieve, that I have to get other people to try to get? It's a peace that is already given to us. How do we live in such a way that models that? Let's close in prayer, and then we're going to close out our time here in a song. So would you please join me in prayer? Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for waking us up. We thank you for being our peace. Thank you that the peace that comes through your Son, Jesus, is something that is given to us, and we will experience its fullness one day. And so in the already and not yet time, may your Spirit fill us and strengthen us and allow us to persevere in the midst of chaos. Father, during this Advent season, may we be a people of peace. May we be a people, a church that extends peace out into our neighborhoods and into our communities and into our world. And in that extension, Father, may others then be able to experience the same peace and be invited to be a part of that already but not yet time. Father, we pray all this in your Son's name, in Jesus' name. Amen. If you're able to, I invite you to stand. We're going to sing a couple songs here, and then they'll close out with a benediction.